Once again, all praise to Yahweh Shem Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of the great millstone. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect. This is part 2 of who is King Phillip II of Macedonia before the video cut off. So I'm just going to hit some. I didn't have much left, but I'll start here. It says Philip's military skills and expansionist vision of Macedonian greatness brought him early success. He first had to remedy a predicament which had been greatly worsened by the defeat against the Illyrians, in which King Perdiccas himself had died. The Paeonians and the Thracians had sacked and invaded the eastern regions of Macedonia, while the Athenians had landed at Macedonia. I'll skip to early military career. Using diplomacy, Philip pushed back the Paeonians and Thracians, promising tributes, and crushed the 3,000 Athenian hoplites. I'll just skip. Philip had married Audata, great-granddaughter of the Illyrian king of Dardania, Bardyllis. However, this did not prevent him from marching against the Illyrians in 358 and crushing them in a ferocious battle in which some 7,000 Illyrians died, 357 BC. By this move, Philip established his authority inland as far as Lake Ohrid and earned the favor of the Epirotes. So Philip reached an agreement with Athens to lease the city to them after his conquest in exchange for Pt.2, lost by Macedonia in 363. However, after conquering Amphipolis, Philip kept both cities. You see that treachery? He wasn't supposed to do that. As Athens had declared war against him, he allied Macedon with the Chalcidian League of Olynthus. He subsequently conquered Pt.2, this time keeping his word and ceding it to the league in 356. During 356 BC, Philip conquered the town of Crinides and changed its name to Philippi. That's where you get the, hey, what's that? What's that Psalm 49? I'll get that real quick. Salakia. I'll just to get it. I don't know. I don't know what particular verse, but I'll see if it'll come up real quick. I spelled that wrong. Sorry about that. See if I can get it real quick in Psalm 49. Yeah. This is Psalm 49 and 11. Their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. They call their lands after their own names. Yeah, because you named it Philippi. That's where we get the book of Philippians from. But that wasn't the name of that region initially. It was Crinides. Okay, and I just basically was reading these different things to show, to bring to life this scripture here, because I can read on and it'll go on and on about his conquest, his military things that he did, conquering and but just to read this scripture. This is John 10:10. The thief, which is Esau, the devil, cometh not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. That's Yahweh Shai speaking. So that's the sole purpose of the so-called white man, the biblical Edomite man, to kill, steal, and destroy. No matter how smooth he's speaking, no matter how nice his legislation may sound on the surface, it's all to kill you and to destroy you and to steal from you. Even when you want to go back, the brother posted a video, that brother Gabaria posted a video entitled "The White Man Has Always Been Jealous of the Israelites," and it's basically like a short biography of what happened and occurred in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, after the destruction, when they totally destroyed the town, no one was charged, right? But just to get to the point, after the destruction, the Israelites, the so-called black people, got to rebuild in the town with no help from the government, might I add. Got to rebuild in the town. And then what did the government do? The government started trying to pass legislation to steal and usurp the land. Because Tulsa, Oklahoma, it was a lot of the so-called black people, the Israelites that was living there. A large percentage of them owned their land. And so they was coming up with legislation to take their land from them, man. So that's the sole purpose of these so-called white people, man. To kill, to steal, and to destroy, man. Primarily the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American. But before the first video cut off, I just wanted to play this video. Particularly on the League of Corinth, something that what's his name? King Phillip II of Macedon came up with. Which as stated in the earlier video, it was very similar to the United Nations or the League of Nations, or so let's just watch it.
Philip II of Macedon spent the better part of 20 years at war. To put it very simply, he spent 1 decade fighting the Greeks, and another fighting his so-called barbarian neighbors. Macedon went from an obscure backwater to the most powerful state on the Greek peninsula. But, at the end of the 2nd decade, Philip suffered a year of humiliating defeat in the northeast, near a city called Byzantium. The Greeks, whom Philip had strong-armed into a peace settlement years earlier, saw their opening. The two strongest city-states, Athens and Thebes, formed an alliance with Byzantium against Macedon. Philip responded by withdrawing from the northeast and marching south. He would attack the combined armies of Athens and Thebes directly. The two sides met at the Battle of Chaeronea. The details are fuzzy, and we wouldn't have time to go into it anyways, but the important thing is that Philip's son and heir, Alexander, distinguished himself by breaking through the Theban infantry at the head of a cavalry charge, which helped Philip win a narrow victory. Athens and Thebes promptly surrendered to Macedon. This time, Philip wasn't interested in some measly peace treaty. He was interested in domination. Philip installed a puppet government in Thebes. He had them abandon all previous treaties and ally themselves exclusively with Macedon. And then, just in case they didn't get the hint, Philip installed a permanent Macedonian garrison just outside the city. Central Greece was now under Macedonian control. Athens, on the other hand, got off easy. Philip forced them to bend the knee and ally themselves with Macedon, but that was pretty much it. He didn't interfere with the Athenian government, and didn't humiliate them by insisting on a military presence. In gratitude, Athens awarded honorary citizenship to both Philip and his son. This wasn't altruistic on Philip's part. Athens was a maritime power, and Philip had big plans for their ships. But first, Philip needed to get the rest of Greece under control. He invited all of the Greek city-states to a meeting in Corinth. Everybody agreed to attend, except for Sparta. But Sparta was pretty irrelevant at this point, so Philip felt perfectly safe ignoring them and proceeding. When the Greeks arrived in Corinth, Philip dropped a proposal in their laps. He recommended the creation of something called the Hellenic League, also known as the League of Corinth. The league would be governed by a council made up of delegates from each city. This council would be empowered to pass its own legislation, but its most important job was to figure out how to maintain a standing army. Here's a key point. Macedon itself would not be a member of this league, but would require each member of it to make a separate bilateral alliance with them. Basically, this meant that Macedon would get many of the league's benefits without being bound by its decisions. Philip also wanted the league to have a unified foreign policy conducted by somebody called the hegemon. More importantly, the hegemon would be responsible for commanding the league's army during wartime. It shouldn't surprise you to learn that Philip, as the league's architect, imagined himself in the role. I know that's confusing, so let's take a step back for a moment and summarize. Basically, Philip wanted to set up a complex, supranational organization that would allow Greece to govern its own internal affairs, so long as it supplied the king of Macedon with an army. For all intents and purposes, the League would transform Greece into a Macedonian puppet state. But that wasn't how Philip sold his proposal to the Greeks. He sold it as Greek unification. Once united, he argued, they would be strong enough to lead an army to the east and liberate Greek city-states under Persian occupation. Naturally, Philip, as hegemon, would lead this army. In the end, all of the Greek city-states, except Sparta, agreed to join the League. Some more enthusiastically than others. The League of Corinth's first act was to formally name Philip and his descendants hegemon. Their second act was to declare war on the Persian Empire. Philip was now officially in control of the combined strength of the Greek peninsula. He then traveled to Delphi to visit the famous oracle there. He asked her if he would defeat the Persian king. Her answer was this: "The bull is crowned. All is done. The sacrificer is ready." Philip liked this answer. The Persian king was the bull, and Philip was the sacrificer. Invigorated, he returned to Macedon and spent the rest of the year gathering his forces, preparing for the campaign to come. The next spring, Philip sent an advance force of 10,000 men across the Dardanelles to establish a beachhead in Asia. This small army moved south along the coast, liberating several Greek cities that were under Persian rule. But before Philip could follow with the rest of his army, he needed to stabilize the home front. The king of Epirus was itching for war, and that was a problem. Philip sought peace by offering his daughter's hand in marriage. The king of Epirus agreed. When their wedding day rolled around, Philip used the opportunity to exhibit his newfound power. Dignitaries from all over Greece were invited, and grand festivities were planned. The wedding itself took place on the first day, and there was partying and drinking late into the night. On the second day, there was a parade, where 12 giant statues depicting each of the major Greek gods rolled down the street to cheering crowds. A 13th statue of Philip himself followed close behind and was added to their ranks. After the parade, there were games planned. When Philip arrived at the theater, he sent his retinue in first and waited in the wings to make his grand entrance. As Philip was waiting, one of his bodyguards approached. Without warning, the bodyguard stabbed the king in the chest with a dagger, killing him instantly. The assassin bolted, running for his horse, which was waiting nearby. 3 young Macedonians took off after him. In his flight, the assassin got tangled up in a vine and fell to the ground. The Macedonians caught up to him and ran him through with a spear. The king was dead, and so was his killer. Philip wasn't the sacrificer. Philip was the bull. This murder remains an enigma to this day. We don't know all of the details, but here's what we do know. Philip's bodyguard turned assassin was actually one of his ex-lovers. The king had callously tossed the young man aside after a brief affair, and there was some bad blood between the two. This same ex-lover was later the victim of a horrific sexual crime committed by Philip's father-in-law. When Philip's ex-lover told the king about it, he expressed sympathy but did nothing. This caused further animosity between the two. This could be enough to explain Philip's murder. It's possible that the whole thing boiled down to a personal vendetta. But there are some weird loose ends that don't quite make sense. After Philip's death, the assassin's mangled corpse was put on display for the public. Apparently, Olympias, Philip's widow, was seen approaching the corpse and placing a golden crown on its head. Then, some days later, she had the assassin's body taken down and laid to rest in a place of honor not far from the king's tomb. This is some strange behavior. Maybe she made a deal with the assassin and promised to see to his burial after the deed was done. But there's one more thing that doesn't sit right. The 3 men who chased down the assassin in the moments after the murder just happened to be close personal friends with the king's son. We know that the assassin tripped and fell and, conceivably, could have been taken alive. And yet, these 3 men killed him on the spot. Maybe that was the plan. Maybe the assassin knew about some wider conspiracy. The sad truth is that we don't know. But we do know what happened next. At the age of 20, Philip's son, Alexander III of Macedon, ascended to the throne.